they still see something going on with the project. And actually, that's kind of a nice feature of Assembla is those notifications. After about a week, they'll unsubscribe and they'll stop getting them. But they they do like to see that progress going on. And Assembla, when you first sign up, you're defaulted to all the notifications. So it actually looks, even if there's not a lot of project activity, it looks like there's a ton of project activity. You're not taping yet, are you? You're not streaming, are you? Copy again! What's that?
I set the default for the space.
So you set it to just the notifications that they need?
Yeah.
Okay.
But like Suzette was saying, she likes to put it up where they can actually browse it like it's a website.
So let's talk about that. So Brandon, what I did is I set up everything first through command line, and then I added the tower.
Yeah.
It's just the way I've learned to do it.
Sure.
Before I get there, Jeff, let's just make a change to a file. For those of you who haven't seen this.
Okay, so, alright, there we go. Okay, so that worked. Now, if we go to htdocs, it's just, this is telling me, now you're going to actually clone the repository right into there. There it is. So if I go to so you'll see so here's the one I just created. Where's it backwards?
Because that's how they do. That's Lion.
You can change it.
You can change it, but I'm not going to for you.
I'm not upgrading.
You don't have to have it that way. It took some getting used to.
So this is on GitHub for those who don't know. Basically, it's kind of like a social network. So here's the one I just created, and I will tell you there's nothing here. But the nice thing about this one I just created, I think, is it automatically shows. And here, let's see if it works. So we'll create a new file.
Trying to make it like the iPhone.
Yeah. It takes some getting, it takes some getting used to.
Okay, so I saved that file. So it's showing up here. And you can see here that I put in there. My commit message. So now I've got, did you show like the history? That kind of stuff. So this is where you actually see the history of all the commits you've made. So you're seeing it has the diff for what's in there. I added the word hi, and then basically what you can do to push this. So if I'm looking here, even though I committed everything, there's still nothing on the server yet because you have to push it to the remote. So you can basically publish it by just dragging and dropping. Say, okay, do you want to do this, whatever. Create a new branch, essentially. Say, okay, so it's publishing it. So now you'll see under here,
It's a hell of a learning curve, man.
SSH key issue?
I think you were not doing this one.
Okay, there. It's just that it wasn't authenticated. So when I pushed that to this, when I pushed this in the master branch, it created this.
It wasn't in Genesis, huh?
Jeff, you paying attention?
Hi.
So then paying attention.
It was because so I wasn't authenticated, which is why I didn't put it. But I just dragged it and dropped it. So now I'm seeing on the remote here, there's a README. So if I go back to the site, you can see that they push this README file. The nice thing about GitHub is if you create a README, it'll actually display. I think it does this in Assembler too, but it'll actually display the text of the README for whatever folder you go into. So if you want to have instructions for other developers or whatever, you can do that. And then clicking on the file, you can see what's in it. You can see different versions about it, all that kind of stuff. So.
Sweet.
So everything I did in command line, that was that step. Thank you.
Right.
Awesome.
Questions?
See it both ways.
So you have a local version and an on the web version.
Yes. Well,
You have a
no.
local repository and a master repository.
The repository is not. This isn't live anywhere yet. It's a website. Git is
It's
not
on a
just
server, but it's not a website.
Git's for any kind of code. Actually, any kind of file can go under version control. It's not just website code. So we'll put Flash code, iOS code. We'll put everything through a Git repository.
Yeah, I've used it with PSDs
Yeah.
in Photoshop.
Absolutely. All it is a version control system, so it doesn't matter what kind of file you
But
put
it
in.
could be a website.
It absolutely is a website. I mean, but it's just files living on a server. It's not actually doing anything. It doesn't
Into a
function as a
database.
website.
You can essentially write a book that has nothing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This will track any kind of files. So, all right. Make sense? Questions? That is our systems I was talking about. That is how we've set them up. So we've got local, code repo local, code repo server.
When you say
and
code repo local, you're talking map?
Yeah.
MAMP
Sometimes?
is just where they live. Git, that's why I was showing this.
It could be in any folder.
It
Yeah.
could be map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
No, it could
No,
It's not-
MAMP is just what runs your web server.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all MAMP does for you.
Yeah, but it,
What I'm talking about is this right here. That .git folder is the local code repo. And all it is, it truly is a directory with a bunch of
and
database
it's a directory
records
that
in
you
it.
get when you join GitHub.
No.
No.
It's when I did git init at command line, Brandon did add through tower. Both of those commands created this directory, that .git. Okay? And all that is it's a system, it's a database that's storing information about the directory that it's sitting in. That's what a code repo is. And it's tracking those changes. So when you commit, you're basically writing to that little internal database. Okay? The push out to the server is what syncs those two databases. So you've got a local database. Database is probably the wrong word, but you've got a local, you got a local thing and a server thing, and push syncs it up here.
Well, I see why you're calling it a database, because it really is kind of a record.
It is a record.
It's a record of-
That's a great term. Thank you.
There's a good reason that I can't remember who the quote came from, but
Git is an awesome object storage. If only someone, or someday, someone will make a good version control system out of it.
It's true. It is funny. So that's what your code repository is. That's what Git is. It's your code repository. MAMP is just a local version of a web server. So MAMP allows you to run Apache, PHP, MySQL on your local box. They really have nothing to do with each other, although they do.
Yeah, it's just convenient for you to put it in that folder because then that's where you've got MAMP looking for.
That's right.
So basically, would you be able to actually hook it up into your application when you hit Control S to save, to automatically do a commit? Or just
Control S to save what?
Kind of like when you do the code, right? You're writing code and then hit save.
That is the equivalent of your Command S in Photoshop.
Or Command S, right?
Yeah.
Or any. So when you hit save, would you be able to hook it up to commit, or just?
I don't believe so.
You should know.
And actually, you don't really want that because I may make a lot of changes outside of Git in VB-Edit until I get it right before I do a commit. I'm not committing every single change I make.
Okay.
So I may make a change to a few files before I'll do a commit, and in the commit I'll say, okay, this is generally what I did, and then I'll push up to the server.
So you're making conscious decisions. This is when I'm going to decide to commit.
Yeah.
Our commits are usually like pieces of the puzzle. So I'm working on the theme. I finished, the single page. So all the stuff that was involved in making that happen, I'm gonna commit those all in one little bundle. This is the stuff I did for the single page, and then later on I'm gonna work on the archive page, and all that stuff that I did to make that happen. I'm gonna commit to a separate little bubble. And when I'm done working, I'm gonna take all those commits I made and I'm gonna push them up to the main repository. And later on, Brandon's gonna go, hey, what'd you do? He's going to pull it all down. He's going to have all the changes I made.
Almost like a milestone.
Like
a milestone.
And in between each commit, you're doing testing locally.
Yeah.
Right. Using MAMP and looking at the site.
Your commits are kind of your local pushes, I guess, and then your pushes everything up to the main hub.
So when you guys know Dave Cole and I are working on Dasher, right? We're getting very close, but this is exactly how we work. So we actually work on different schedules. I'll usually work on this late at night. He works during the day. I'll usually makes little commits as I go, and then I'll push at the end of the night. And then he'll pull it down. He'll just look in the history and see, okay, here's what Steve did. And then if I'm doing something that actually solves a ticket that's in Assembler, I'll do all my commits. I'll push, and then I'll go to Assembler and check off the ticket. So it's an extra note. Okay, this is what Steve did last night. Now I can go and work on this stuff. But this history is key because this is everything that's happened on the project, and it's right there for you in Tower.
So when you push, you're pushing to a live server, right?
When I push, I'm pushing to Assembler, to my code repository.
It's not a live web server.
It's not a live web server. It's just a storage. It's all it is file storage.
Storage in the cloud.
Sure. When I want to put it live and show it to the client on a website, then I would pull the files to that web server.
Yeah.
All right. I think we've belabored this one. I think we're good. We're moving on. Unless anybody has any other questions, we're gonna move on. All right. So let's talk a little bit about custom meta boxes. That's a good one. All right. I'm going to do it all through command line.
Nice.
Blue screen.
That's nice.
Awesome. I'm going to torture everyone. I'm doing this on the fly, so I'm going to pull up a current project that actually has some custom meta boxes in it. I did talk about a project earlier that doesn't allow us to use Get. I'm not going to mention any names. As a non sequitur, we just recently relaunched AdamSandler.com. I'm not very proud of the front end of the website. Our marching orders were keep the front end exactly like it is with all the bad interface pieces that are there. They know it's a horrible UI. They know it's a bad front end. This phase was specifically take what we've got, convert it to WordPress, and in the next phase we get to redesign the front end of the website. So that's how this project is working.
Totally understand that.
Including
Been there.
username admin.
Been there.
What's that?
Including having username admin.
That was my doing. All right, so thank you. Thank you for pointing out our security flaws. Password is password.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Now I gotta go change it.
I guess if the IT guys weren't so
More secure. I just watched Spaceballs last weekend again, and I love the line where he says, "Hey, go change the combination on my luggage." All right, so the reason I'm pulling up this one is we have a lot of meta boxes on this project. So let me explain what was on this website and what we had to tackle. So this website, this website was last worked on about 10 years ago. So the code was very dated. The interface was.
Did you build it?
What's that?
Did you build it?
10 years ago? No. No. It was a custom PHP site with no content management system. That literally the staff at Happy Madison was trained to use PHPMyAdmin to make their changes to the live website.
Wow.
Okay. Talk about cowboy code. And talk about margin for error. That's what they've been doing on this website for 10 years before they had us rebuild it. Okay. They didn't know what a content management system was. So the stuff that we're putting in front of them, they're absolutely blown away.
Yeah, they did. It was PHPMyAdmin.
Yeah. So anyway, one of the first things we're getting rid of. Button for an iPod version download. Okay,
Nice.
so they're still in the mode where when they go to make a video clip to post to the website, they're making 9 versions of the video clip. Okay, so this was done when there was a legitimate reason for this 10 years ago. The bandwidth was spotty and you didn't know what you were going to get. And so this is one of the first things that's going to go. We actually may take this away and move to an HTML5 player, something like media.js. Soon, before we redesign the site. So you can see throughout the site, every video clip has these little boxes.
80% of the words are just.
There aren't that many videos on this site. The uploads folder itself is 25 gigs worth of data. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, sheesh is right. So this site it's not very portable. It's tough to move this thing around. Anyway, so that's one of the first things that we will end up rebuilding on this site. In addition to the navigation and the redundant content, and there's all kinds of interface issues with this site. There's 2 movie pages on this site. So if I go to movies and albums, these are all the movies that Adam has starred in. So these aren't necessarily Happy Madison produced movies. These are things like Funny People. Grown-ups that Happy Madison didn't produce. Okay, so these are things that Adam has appeared in. So these are more starring roles than producing roles. And then there's the Happy Madison movies, which are all his production company. Paul Blart Mall Cop, Zookeeper, Bucky Larson just opened this weekend. Born to be a Star. Are we live streaming? Okay. So these are all Happy Madison pictures. Same exact page, almost the same template, but 2 different kinds of movies. Okay, so again, I'm only scratching the surface as to all the nuances that we had to tackle on this website. So that's just a couple of little things. So let's go into the dashboard here. So the first thing we did is we added a few custom post types, and we went through several iterations of this to get it right. And the discovery on this on this project was really ongoing. As we tackle one thing, we learn something else. It was really just getting deeper and deeper into this antiquated PHP code. We'd find something that just needed to be built a certain way.
Who has the key?
Uh-oh, who stole the key?
It's in the box.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're using custom post types for movies, for all the movies I showed you. Albums. On that page there was movies and albums. So Adam's produced 5 comedy albums, or he's made 5 comedy albums. There's news, because there's a whole news section, which we kept separate from posts. I'll explain what we're using posts for in a second. Downloads. There's some downloadable content. Things like, I think, wallpapers and name icons.
And you did a custom post type for the download.
We did. We did one for games, letters, which are letters from his family, and I think that's it for custom post types. So, yeah, we wanted to keep everything very separate for them. Posts we're using for what they call features. Posts to make sure I'm explaining this right. So yeah, these are mostly video clips, but they didn't belong to any specific movie or album or other post type. Okay, so each of these posts is essentially a video clip. Okay, and underneath the post, we're using the gallery to actually manage the various video clips. So I remember I showed you there's low, medium, high, XL QuickTime, low, medium, high, XL WMP, iPod. There's some Flash versions. We're doing that all through the gallery. So we'll look at Wheelchair Cat. Come on in. Oh, hey man, come on in. Right there. How's it going, dude? All right, good to see you. Take care. All right. So we're using the upload and insert for all the media files. So we're using these posts as literally just little containers. So each video clip is a post, and then we've got 14 items in this gallery. I'm afraid to look. These are the 2 thumbnails that we use. These are the video files themselves. I don't know what these are. The way we have them do this is we actually wrote a script that ingested all of this content from their old database. So we wrote a conversion script first that pulled it all in, converted it into posts, attached it, and then we're using a meta box. And this is a recent addition, to let them associate it. So what they do here is, with all the video files, here's a spot for QuickTime Low, Medium, High, XL, and they go in, and this just does a little pull-down menu for the different attachments, and then that's how they associate which attachment goes to which type of file. So this is a custom meta box we call movie types. Okay? With that, let's eat some pizza, and then we'll talk about how we built this. Yeah, I know.
Oh,
it gets worse.
God.
That's just a preview. That's a great question, and I've asked it about. Media. So with Get Media, it's just the opposite of let me make sure this is correct. So these 2 functions work together. So Get Media is a centralized function that we call every time we want a movie clip. Okay. We actually we plug in the post ID. We have a few other parameters, but what this does is a second here. All right, we've actually got a couple of different functions here. So this is what we're doing. Make sure this is the other one. We actually this is the home page, but we did end up centralizing some of this code as well. But what we're doing here is, for this spot, so for this spot, we actually have a category in the system called home page left. So that's how they designate which clip goes in this spot. When they designate that, we then use a couple of functions I'm going to show you to get all of these elements. So the elements here are the thumbnail, or the image they've designated as the home page, all of the video clips that are associated with it, the title, the date, all that stuff comes in through the WordPress.
Do I have it right that when you custom code or use plugins for the custom post types and the custom meta boxes, the next step is to write some PHP code to grab that data and place it in with HTML and CSS.
That's what we're doing right here. Okay. So what we've done here is we actually have we've got a custom query. We know that the only types of posts that they're going to put in that spot are either a movie, which is it's typically what it's going to be, or a post. Remember I told you that some of those video clips just live in the post area, the free form stuff that's not associated with the movie. So we actually are saying, look in the post types that are either post or movie. Okay, give me the most recent one. Okay, it automatically goes by date. In this category called homepage left. Okay, so we actually wrote that query. We're querying the post, and then this is a loop, but it's only a one post loop, and then we're getting all the information on that post. Okay, so we call it get Sandler image, which we wrote as a centralized script to get that image. I'll explain what this is in a second. We're showing the time, basically just using the WordPress, the time function to show that the date, and we're only showing the date, not the time. There's the title, and then we have these two functions called QuickTime icons and WPM icon. I'll explain these in a second. Let's talk about this. If it also lives in this category called new, it'll put up the little banner in the corner of the image. You can see the one over here. So Bucky Larson is our most recent. There's a little new flag right there at the corner of the image. So we're actually tying that into a category. So they can pull these little new flags on and off at will by just assigning the category new to that post. That's how they manage it within WordPress. Okay. Homepage left, homepage right, just pull in the most recent. And again, that's foolproof. So if they accidentally didn't take out last week's and they put in a new one, it's okay. It's just going to pull in the most recent one. If they put it in, they see that it's wrong, then they'll go in and pull out last week's from that category. So this is pulling in the most recent homepage right post. Make sense?
This is a homepage theme.
This is the homepage part of the theme.
Theme page that you've created.
Yeah, we're using index.php, and that's what we're looking at the code right now for index.php. Okay. So Sandler QuickTime icons, Sandler WPM icons. Again, this is where we're stepping through and saying, does QuickTime Low exist? If it does, then we're going to use that one. Does the medium one? Are these files? Do they all exist for these different file types? And this is where we step through and make it happen. That's great. Make sense?
Yeah.
Took a while to get there. It wasn't easy. Okay. Cool.
I want to share one other plugin that I've been using a lot now for custom post types. It's post type order. It allows you to add sorting to a custom post type just by drag and drop.
Oh, cool.
Really nice.
It's a good segue. Actually, it leads me into how we actually organize the content within the movie section and with the Happy Madison section. We're actually just using the menu. So within here's actually movies, albums, and Happy Madison. So once they add a movie to the system, it doesn't go live until they actually order it within the menuing system. So we tap right into this WordPress function for how those icons appear on the page. I'll show you.
Do that.
I'll show you. So So you can see my most recent one here is Bucky Larson. All these thumbnails come right out of that menu system. I guarantee nobody's looking at the site right now anyway, so we'll go ahead and change Bucky Larson. We're streaming. So now if I reload, see how easy that was? I just switched Zookeeper and Bucky Larson.
So you're treating that like a menu.
We're
Nice.
using the menuing system for the ordering, but
that's it.
That's it. That's all we're doing.
Wow.
It also drives this pull-down menu, so we're tapping into that, and I'll show you these functions as well.
So you're pulling from that array of the menu and then, very nice.
So if we look at the Happy Madison template, there's actually a couple plugins that will give you that same functionality. We use one on Daily Caller called Column Ordering that we adapted from another plugin, so it's the same kind of thing, just drag and drop. We did that before there was the WordPress 3 came out and the menuing system was in there. So let me refamiliarize myself with how we did that. I'm looking at the right page. Oh, there we go. There we go. So I'm using this called WP Get Nav Menu Items. So that'll form an array out of whatever's in a menu. I put in items, and I'm just stepping through to get those pieces out. It's a little bit different because you're not dealing with posts at that point. You actually are dealing with items within an array, and it tracks menu items a little bit differently than it does posts. It'll give you it just gives you a different set of data. So what you might want to do is if you're using this, print this out. Play with it, print it either on the screen or to the error log to see what data is in there, and then we're just using the appropriate data. So this is, it's an object, not an array. So we're using item URL for the permalink, and item title for what's in the nav menu. That's what draws that pull down menu. For the images themselves, for those one sheets, again, calling WP Get Nav Menu Items. I actually can't take credit for this. Brandon taught me this, so I should give him credit. Yeah, I should give him credit anyway. He doesn't even know he did, but he taught me this. So again, I'm stepping through items here. I'm using item URL. I'll explain what this is in a second. And then I'm using, again, remember the new flag. If it's new, we're actually tapping into the category again to put the little new banner up there. And then that's it. So let's talk about this complicated thumbnail function a second. Okay, for a second. So if I just wanted the thumbnail, I could actually pull there's a built-in WordPress function for thumbnail, and then I use the post ID. Post ID actually, because we're using nav menu, it's actually called object ID because your nav menu items are not just limited to posts, and we are using custom content types to drag into that menu. So it's called object ID when you're dealing with this function, with nav menu items. Okay. So what's all this garbage here? Remember I told you we're using a plugin for multiple thumbnails. So built into WordPress, we've got just thumbnail. But on these, we needed three different types. We needed not just thumbnail, we needed full image and the movie title. And we wanted these nice friendly interfaces for them to be able to use so it's easy to manage. So we're actually using a plugin for this called, it's something really complicated, multiple post thumbnails. And those calls I was showing you in the theme, I'll go back to those in a second, actually come from this plugin. So they extended the WordPress functionality to have those multiple boxes, and we're calling those plugin functions to draw the thumbnails. So let's talk about that for a second. So I can't remember exactly what each of these functions do, but within the README of that plugin, multiple post thumbnails, it actually has very good documentation on how to use this and what to put in there. So I didn't actually write any of this by hand. I really just took their template and copied it and used it to my own benefit. But there is a way to initialize these thumbnails, and if you look at the top of my functions.php doc, that's what's happening here. And again, I took this right from the README of the plugin. If we're using the plugin, if the class exists, then I'll just start adding thumbnail types. And you can actually add them to particular post types. So I've added this one called thumbnail to post. I've added this one to my one called movie. We've got ones for albums. So each post type actually has a different set of thumbnail types. And that's what I'm doing here. So I'm initializing all of those at the very beginning of the theme. It's all very well documented in the README of that plugin. Okay. I covered a lot. Questions?
Thank you. That was awesome.
Yeah. You're welcome.
And I can't wait to go home and play with that navigation.
That nav, the way that menus are structured in WordPress, there's actually a lot of really a lot of powerful functionality there, but most of it's hidden. You know, most people just think of it as a way to adjust the nav bar. There's so much more you can do with this if you just tap into it.
Wow.
We use this for a lot of different ordering mechanisms.
Can you show us one other thing you used it for?
You're gonna put me on the spot, huh?
Prove it. All right.
Yeah. I'm thinking which project we did recently. Thanks, Linda.
You don't have to. You
You can't do it. It's okay, Steve.
All right. Ross, we did anything on unboxing? We doing anything? Did we tap into it in an unboxing for anything? I don't think so.
Don't worry about it.
So basically, any custom post type you could go ahead and order through the nav menu. So if you created, let's say, testimonials, you want to drag them around.
We did it on Borderless.
No, Borderless. Thank you.
Mention I
No, that's not really how you're using it. I'm really using it for content within a template. It really has nothing to do with post types. I'm not ordering posts, although you could. If you wanted to just, like, say, have a news site and control the order of the posts that are in there, you could absolutely tap into this. We're not on Daily Caller because we wrote it before this stuff was available. What are we using it
John
for?
says he's used it for blog rolls.
For blog rolls?
Mm-hmm. For doing a linked list of blog rolls, and then also with social media buttons.
That John guy is so helpful. I'm waiting for him to comment back on that now.
He's on a delay.
I'm on a delay?
Yeah.
There's a 6-second delay, so we curse. Now I'm going to go ahead and start cursing.
I mean, you can't show anything, so it's all like that app, but we're tying out with like the custom post type ordering on display side to the menus.
Who says I can't show something?
Just don't open a PowerPoint.
Okay.
Only the PDF.
So, along the top here it says competitive resources, customer presentations, featured product solutions, overviews, and sales training. So, you're going to have to guide me here, Kelly. But
Upper left, the download, right, upper left.
So we actually are using this menu to organize the content that appears in this tree, in this system. So they wanted control as to what appeared toward the top of the page, and we're tapping into that. So that's a good example of what you were. Cool.
And how do you convey that to the client? Like, hey, go into this thing called menus, and click on this thing called blah blah blah, and
convey it to the client about 3 or 4 times before it.
And I moved it over to the right, and now it's in some hierarchy. I mean, how do you?
And actually,
it's not really a menu though. It's something
right.
else.
That's a great question. I don't have an immediate answer for that. But
be nice to
we actually are tapping into. We do use menus and sub menus, and we've got 3 levels to these menus, and that is done by moving this stuff over to the right and making
Yeah,
something.
but they can see the feedback pretty immediately of dragging and dropping them. So you teach them. I mean, we don't start with nothing.
Right.
So
right.
we can show them, okay, drag this around, log off, log on, look at the back here.
I'm always like kind of scared to show a client, oh, click on this thing that has the label of it doesn't say what it does, and you know.
If you've used WordPress for any length of time,
Well, they have it. That's the thing.
They did that. They did a major nomenclature change in WordPress 3, and hopefully this will change at some point too. I don't know. For Daily Caller,
with this power, it would be really cool if they went ahead and made, like custom post types, a custom menu thing, which allows you to go ahead and just. It's a sorting tool.
Yeah.
You can do the pages right, though.
Well, I know.
but what you're saying is ultimately the sorting should be built right into the edit pages menu.
Yeah.
That's really where it should be. You know, there's that little hidden field for menu order within a page hierarchy. That's very tough to find and very hard to
And there's always some plugin that you have to download just to be able to edit that one little piece.
I never sent my clients to use that. On Daily Caller, again, before this stuff existed, let me make sure I'm local and not live on this. We actually we have a category that we tap into. So as they're setting categories on posts, it dumps into this thing that we call column ordering, and this actually drives. Come on. See how well that looks? Okay, these columns down the left and middle actually are driven by that column ordering section. So that they manage this stuff, 24 hours a day, and this stuff is ever changing. So that's how they use this to manage the order of the stories that appear on their homepage. So, and again, this is a very similar system to menu ordering. It was just this is pre-menu ordering, and we stole this from. There was a plugin that was similar that we just sort of tapped into and built the other features that we needed. Since Brandon is patching the core now, can we have him pull that patches? Absolutely, Brandon, can you do that for us?
I've already done it.
All right. You're sitting here patching the core.
Everything you want is in core right now.
Brandon is awesome. All right, so questions on this stuff? I know I threw a lot at you. All right.
Can you make some snippets of that code available for us to look at with the menuing hack? Because that
absolutely not. No.
Even if it's just
sure.
really.
No, I can absolutely post some snippets of the menuing code.
Okay.
Thank you. The specific function you really just want to look at the codex for this is the WP get nav menu items. Most of it will be there for you. So I'll pull some snippets of this, and I'll also reference the page in the codex where, again, Brandon's the one who put me on the path for this stuff.
Right.
We worked on a project together, about a year ago, and these are the functions he was using, and it just clued me into the power of this stuff.
I would never think to hack my way into the menuing system to make that do that.
It just becomes an object for you. It becomes a big array, and then it's all just there for you. I mean, once you actually print this out and look at this in an error log or on the page, you'll see the power of it immediately. I mean, it's all there.
Yeah.
So. Cool. All right, I'm going to segue into Brandon's stuff. Let's talk about filters and actions a little bit. So, show of hands, who knows the difference? Who knows what filters and actions are? Show of hands. All right. Sort of. Who knows? People at their hands up. Who knows the difference between a filter and an action? Sort of. Okay. All right. So filters and actions are the hooks within the WordPress core, and that's really how you tap into the functionality of the core. Show of hands. Don't be embarrassed. It's okay because I did it as well. Who actually alters the core code of WordPress?
Has in the past?
Has in the past.
Oh, in the past, sure, but
besides,
as soon as you hit update, you're like, crap.
Besides supposed to be doing that. Right?
This is pre like update in the GUI. Yeah.
Okay, for years,
Contributing locally. Yeah.
When we first started using WordPress, that's really all I was doing. I was going in and I was editing core code because I didn't know any better. And the problem with that is you ruin your upgrade path. So as soon as the upgrade for WordPress comes out, you've got to remember what you did to the last version of WordPress and redo it to the new version of WordPress. And if they've changed that internal function, you've got problems. So the bottom line is you shouldn't be altering the code. And there are enough hooks in place where you really shouldn't have to. So a hook is adding your own functionality to the WordPress core to do something that you want to do that it doesn't already do. And that's done through actions and filters. Okay? The only real difference between an action and a filter is an action is just code that executes. So inside of the WordPress core, if there's a call that says do action, do _ action, it's just going to execute a piece of code for you. It does nothing else. So if you tap into that action, your code is going to be executed. And it might throw in some parameters like a post ID or something else that's going on in that particular function. So all it's doing is executing code. Where a filter takes in some sort of result, you alter it and then spit the result back out. So what you're doing is you're actually filtering stuff that happens in normal WordPress to make it your own way and then putting it back into the core. So that's the difference between an action and a filter. The action executes, a filter you're actually altering a result set. Make sense? With that, I'm going to turn it over to Brandon because I'm tired of talking. Oh, I hit the wrong button. Enjoy. Oh yeah, I need this. Wait till that's his pepperoni.
Nice shirt.
You like that? Pretty hot. Awesome. Actually, this is one of my favorite WordCamp LA shirts.
So how many do you have?
Three.
Three favorites? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That is a cool shirt.
I like this one much better than the purple one.
I hated it at first, and now I wear it.
I don't like the light white. I don't like the light blue.
I like the purple one. Okay.
Yeah, I kind of wish they were dark.
Okay, so I wanted to talk a little about both actions and filters and patching core because the two of those things just happened recently, so that's pretty cool. So since we're talking about filters, a lot of times WordPress it has some default values that you just don't necessarily want or need or anything like that. Or based on a certain amount of conditions, you want to change that kind of data. So I actually have, a couple of you know, there's a plugin that I'm working on right now called Ad Sanity, and it's an ad system basically to put ads in your site, rotate ads, things like that. And in that process, one of the sort of feature requests that I got was it would be nice in like this view, to highlight the rows to give me a quick heads up to say, which of these ads are expired or which ones are expiring or whatever. So just a quick visual way to differentiate them. And so the first thing I looked at doing was I pulled open my handy dandy Firebug, and I started looking. I was like, okay, well, this table row has some posts in it, or some different classes in it here that I could probably tie into. And so I went and hunted down that code Because if I could add a class to that, then I could highlight it in CSS with whatever I needed to do. Right, so when I, what was that? When I went to go hunt that code down, which is in, when I went to go, actually this is a bad example because I already patched it. Okay, so, oops. Okay. So there's this class within WordPress that it's not really ready for developers to have at prime time yet because the code is, it's still sort of a work in progress, but essentially all the lists of posts here, like these, comments, they all are extensions of a class called WP list tables, or list table. So they have all this, print out a single row, do all this common functionality, keeping things sort of segmented away so that if you want to extend them for additional functionality, you can. So that's what this does. And basically, I'm just going to skip down to the function we're talking about, which is single row here. So what it does is, for every row that it prints out, it gets here like this is the row, basically the table row HTML that gets printed out. So what it does here is it says, okay, check to see if it's the first row or an alternate row, so you can have some sort of like, slight color differences or whatever. It checks to see who the post owner is. It checks to see if it has post formats, puts this in here. And then, here's where it basically prints out, what kind of classes you can put in there. So all it's doing is echoing out, it's printing out the row class, which is either alternate or nothing, who the author is, what the status is, and if it has a post format class. So there's not really a great way to hook into this. So what I ended up having to do was in Add Sanity, I took this really horrible approach, and what I did is right here, I basically am using jQuery to attach an additional class to rows based on some meta information that I'm pulling ahead of time. And it's just kind of a hacky way of going about things. I'm manipulating the DOM of the HTML after the fact. So it's there's a ton of reasons like it could break. Someone doesn't have JavaScript, for example, active, which I don't know where they would, but there's just a ton of ways that this could break or just not work properly. So the WordPress way is if you see something you want to change it, you filter it, right? So what I did is I initially I went over to track. Does everybody know what track is? This is basically the ticketing system for WordPress. So every decision or new piece of code or whatever goes through track. It has to be approved, it has to be reviewed, all this kind of stuff. And the same username you have on WordPress.org is the same one that works here, so that's handy. Oops, not browser. Under View Tickets, this is like the hardest site to browse. I seriously, the first thing you do when you come up with an idea for WordPress is you go, okay, I'm going to go search track. And almost every search you put in is going to come up empty. You can't find anything in this thing. I swear to God, there's nothing. I couldn't find anything. So, anyways, I submitted a ticket, trying to name it as appropriate as possible. So I'm saying add a custom class to this single row output. And you give a description here. So, trying to again be as descriptive as possible so that some happy admin is going to come along and go, hey, that's a great idea, I want to put that in the core. So the first thing I did was I provided some code that added added a filter to this that you could add any sort of custom filter that you wanted to, right? So if you take a look at here, this is showing kind of just like the Git stuff that Steve was showing earlier, but subversion. So it's saying I changed this row right here, the post owner, like basically the output of the TR. All I did was add in this. Where'd it go?
The custom.
Oh yeah. So this is what was in there previously, and then I added in here custom class, and I set this filter up that says, this custom class is equal to post, list, table, row, class, and put nothing in by default. Yeah.
How did you notate all of that?
What do you mean?
Did I miss something?
How did I generate this?
Yeah.
I'll get to that.
Okay, sorry. Thanks.
So this, basically the green stuff is the stuff I added, the red stuff is the stuff that was in there before. So, a decent solution, right? And this kind of goes back to, like John and my discussion last time where, he had some code that worked, that's great, but it probably wasn't optimized as best as it could be. So I posted it, and it kind of sat there for 2 or 3 weeks or whatever. And it actually, Westy, who's one of the core committers, came along and said, okay, I'm going to own this, that's great. But didn't leave any comments. And just kind of let it sit there. So, and set it to reviewing. That was great. So then I kind of got tired of waiting. So I reached out to Nason, who I'm sure everybody knows Nason here. If you don't, he knows everything about core. So I was like, hey, what do I have to do to get this thing reviewed? It's been reviewed for 3 weeks, and it's 2 lines of code, right? So he went and looked at it, and he made this suggestion. It probably makes sense to use post class for this. Post class is a function that, if you look in a lot of themes, people use, and it basically gives you all sorts of output for classes based on a post. So I went in and I looked up post class, and then I found it. And it basically says, this class, it echoes out class equals get post class, all this stuff. So then I went, okay, great. So I need to find this function. So then I got sort of to the meat of things. Basically what it does is it says, get the post, right? So you pass it an ID of a post. Then it creates this big array for classes. It says, okay, here's the empty array. First thing it does is add post-post ID to the class. Then it says what the post type is, some other type, same thing, status. There's a ton of things in here that are really helpful for, being able to style things with CSS. But more importantly, I'm looking through this and going, hey, half of this stuff is already in the list table, right? So if we look at this format stuff, this is all the post format stuff right here. Well, there's 2 things here that I noticed. It's getting the, right here, it's getting the post format, and it's saying, okay, if it's a post format, put out format dash whatever the post format is, or output format default. Well, if you look at post format class, it's saying format dash something or format dash standard, right? So that's already an inconsistency there that we can remove by not even using that there and using post class. So once I sort of got on this, let's use post class, the reason he suggested that is because post class has a filter already, right? So now I can go and I can check against that, based on what screen I'm on or what page I'm looking at, and I can say, okay, let's add these classes to the post class, and I can add 50 classes if I want to, whatever's relevant. So I went in and I submitted another patch, which was based on that. What I've changed is I've actually changed 2 files now. and I've changed a lot more. So I've gone in here to the actual post format, and I added in post owner, and because that was in the list table, but it's not in the post class function. So I added that, which increases sort of the styling you can do with there. And I removed post owner here, post format, got rid of, and all I did now is I did the same thing, basically took that same line from post class and put it in here, and then instead of using my custom one that no one would know about, I'm now using this one that everybody should know about because it's already been used, right? So this is the patch that I submitted, and to make testing go a little faster this time, I actually created a quick plugin that they could install and put in, and basically all it does is it adds a filter to post class, and this is the function that's going to run. It's saying, okay, if the current screen that I'm on, which I'm on post list page, and the admin is edit post, then I'm adding a class called custom class just to see if it works. This isn't anything that's going to help me out, but if someone who's a core committer comes along and says, okay, I'm going to install this plugin and activate it, I can see that this actually works. So that's just sort of the icing on the cake, I guess, for them. So I found out yesterday that, I think it was yesterday, that Westy actually came in and looked at it and said, that he thought he actually told me the same thing, but he changed it from awaiting a review to now it's going to go into 3.3. So that's the process for generating things, like Steve was asking, was there's actually a page on the Codex that will teach you how to do all of this. If you go into the extend area, I think this is one of the least visited parts of the site, but there's a little developer center that tells you how to use Subversion and all this stuff. But there's let's see, using Subversion. So this tells you here how to essentially check out WordPress to make modifications, or just to kind of see and play around with it, or whatever you're going to do with it. So this is a great place to start. Where I actually found the most useful tutorial was
to use diff and make a patch.
What's that?
To use diff and make a patch.
Yeah. Sorry.
Looking for the tutorial to set it up.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find it.
So anyways, the first thing you do, you actually have to do this with, well, I guess you could do it with a GUI, but I basically did this with the terminal. I tried to do it with using Git for WordPress, like Git and SVN, but I could not get that thing to work. So basically what I did is I went into MAMP, I created a new folder. For this purpose, we'll call it trunk. You basically change directories, and can you guys even see that? That's kind of small. Whoa, that's awesome. Okay, so I'm in this directory, and find it. Hold on. Almost there. Okay, So this is the line that you need to actually check out trunk, which is when you're working on WordPress, like if you're trying to create a patch, the first thing you want to do is you want to grab the very latest bleeding edge of WordPress, and that's what this directory is: HTTP core SVN WordPress.org/trunk. So I press enter, and then what's going to happen is it's pulling all these files off of the WordPress trunk, the very latest bleeding edge version, and it's pulling them all into this folder. So we're looking here. All these files now exist here. It's pulling in Kismet. Okay, so it's pulled out the entire latest version of core. So all you have to do to to basically edit something is you'll open it up in your favorite text editor. Say, for example, I'm going to make a change to 2011, a theme or whatever. It could be any file in core that's tracked by core. So say I'm going to say there's going to be a difference on this 404 page. I'm going to add something that says, where did it go? So I saved that, right? Now, if I look in this folder, I think it's called SVN stat. It tells me, okay, I've changed that file, the WP content /theme/2011/404, right? So I want to be able to get that change into somebody else's hands so that they can go, okay, this actually makes sense. We should put this in here. So what you can do is, if you type svn -diff, it will tell you, okay, this is essentially that output that was in the nice format on the web, and I need to output this to a file, right? So if I say svn diff and I point it to what this syntax basically is saying is take whatever the output of that is and dump it into a file called out.diff on my desktop. So here's my desktop. It should be somewhere right here. So I hit that, and then now I've got this file on my desktop. It's called out.diff. It's got all the code that was changed right here. What I did, and this is kind of helpful, I think, for track, is the first thing I did was actually create this ticket, right? And I gave it an explanation, all this stuff. And what you do is you get this ticket ID. So when I uploaded the file, I just called the diff the same as the ticket, just so that when somebody's actually like trying to test this, they can they can basically say, add this patch or whatever for this ticket, and they know what's actually being tested. So when I did my second one, I just called it .2. I don't know what the actual thing is supposed to do.
That's really normal. That's what everybody does.
Okay. So that's basically it. It's really, really, really easy. I hate Subversion because it's so archaic. But I found all those commands, to copy and paste. I didn't know them by default. So I just copied and pasted them from Mark's blog, and I submitted them. Yeah.
If you are using SVN versus Get, the GUI interface on the Mac is called versions. It's very similar to Tower. Okay. We used to use it before. We were SVN before we were Get.
Okay.
So
Cornerstone is good too.
Is it? Okay. Yeah.
versions isn't free.
Yeah, you get to buy both those, right? Yeah. So I think Subversion comes by default on a Mac, right?
I think it's an older version, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was way easier than I thought it was going to be, and
it's definitely showing its age.
Yeah.
SVN.
Yeah.
I think the page you might have been looking for is using Subversion, but in the codex, as opposed to in the plugins thing.
Okay, that's it.
In the codex. think that might have been what you were looking for.
This one.
And then if you scroll down, it'll tell you how to check it out. It'll
Yeah.
tell you how to create a patch. And
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, so this page right here, if you type using Subversion to Codex, thank you. This is the page that basically taught me everything I know about making a patch for WordPress. So again here, SVN checkout, CO stands for checkout, and then it gives you the URL. The only thing I added to this line was, because I was already in the directory, if you put a period, it means you're in that directory. So, like here, you can I think you can kind of see it, but like right there's a dot. Because I'm already in that directory, it pulls it into the directory. Otherwise, it makes a directory called trunk, I think. And then also the next thing you want to do before you submit your patch, what you want to do is you want to type svn up, which basically updates you to the latest bit of code. So it's thinking. Okay, so there's nothing that's been updated, but if something's been updated by the time you started and finished, it would pull down all the new stuff and work itself out. So yeah, so I think that's it. Like, I mean, I honestly, like, I put it up there and like 2 weeks went by before like the weekend, and we were talking over the weekend, and I'm like, dude, like, what the hell? Why doesn't anybody look at this thing? Like, it's been sitting there, And he's like, just start bugging people, like, it's all good.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I didn't want to be like a dick and be like, okay, like, I'm like, come on, somebody. So, like, I went on the WP Devel, the IRC channel, and got a hold of Nathan there. And he was like, I'll take a look at it. Took a look at it and like made immediate feedback on it. And then later that day I had another patch for them to look at. And at that point I tweeted Westy. I'm like, can you like take a look at this or something? And that was it. Like he said it to us. So.
Just as a note, marking it as 3.3 doesn't necessarily
right.
mean it'll go in.
Yeah.
What? So basically it just means it's appropriate.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
No, and it very well may, but
yeah.
basically just like you got to keep bugging people and like whacking them on the head until you finally see that they've committed it in the logs.
Yeah.
And they'll mark on your ticket that it's committed.
Yeah, and that's what when I was talking to Nathan, he said is if the patch is in there in time for the code freeze, like it'll probably go into 3.3. So.
Sweet.
That's it. Did I not cover filters enough? Like, do you want? I can talk more about those if you want. No, nobody wants. Okay, awesome. So that was it. Any other questions? How concise that was? No one has a question.
Thanks, man.
That was easy.
Someone's like, I still he doesn't do what? I can't say anything.
If they hit the other one, we all go.
Do we want to talk about Git template part? Time's at 8:30. I don't know that I know enough. I mean, I've used it, but I don't know if I know enough to talk about it. Do we want to discuss it? I know it's brought up beginning. Why not? Anton says. All right. Discuss. Talk amongst yourselves. What was discussed? What was discussed at WordCamp about? I mean, I know there was a whole presentation about it, but what specific? Was there something specific usage that he was talking about for Git template?
Just like what Jeffrey had mentioned about the fact that you can use it to be modules so that you can go ahead and put it in different places without having to keep reusing the same code over and over and over again.
It's been a while since I did anything with it, so.
Steve, you want me to read it?
Yeah, it'd be great.
Could you tell I was flailing?
I may do the same thing. You're going to flail better than I am.
And Michael Fields has got something up on GitHub right now, a new theme he's working on.
Okay.
And he said there's like 56 different ones he's put in there.
Okay.
He was really loving the aspect of being able to do Git.
Jeff's in, everybody.
Yeah. I'm glad you're applauding now. It may not happen now.
Now you can't fail.
I can't?
You're too big to fail.
Too big to fail.
He's big in Japan.
Tonight. That's true. I am big in Japan and in China.
What about Norway?
Kelly's big. No, I'm pretty average in Norway.
In Southern.
Yeah, Kelly. Actually,
West Indies.
Kelly's big in West Indies. Let's see, sorry. Well, she's kind of a big deal. Oh, we already said it. Anybody else with the 13 inch? Is there a better resolution setting that makes it?
Yeah, woohoo!
That one is awesome.
Sorry, I was looking at other things. What? Wow. It's Rob Riggle. Has anybody listened to the Nerdist podcast? Of course. All right.
Love it.
What's it called, The Nerdist?
The
Yeah.
Nerdist. I'm not going to tell you anything about it, though.
You have to go find out yourself.
Okay.
He's been getting some pretty awesome people on there lately.
Yeah.
Like,
Patrick Stewart was
big, crazy awesome. Yeah.
Okay, so here's a site that we did recently. Let's see, this is the Lorem Ipsum version of the site.
My favorite version.
Yeah, and we find the files for it. They're in here somewhere.
Oh, that, yeah.
Yeah. Notice some Git files in here. Just pointing that out. This is a callback. Okay, so you notice, you recognize some of the theme files in here that I have on the left, which I know is not very big, but I can't really blow it up. We have, footer, functions, header, index. But I also have these loop dash files right here. So Brandon built these custom post types for, let's see, the about one is for like team members, clients. Surprisingly enough, was about clients, and services was services that this company offers. The company does they manage like media production. So if you're like a TV crew and you need to film something in Alaska, they'll get the catering and getting everything out there, and get the big trucks to get your equipment out there. So they're services. I don't remember how I did this here. It'll come to me shortly. Okay, here we go. So, I'm going to make it bigger. So the idea here with the template loops, and I do apologize, it's actually slightly, well, not wrong, but I'll point out what I didn't do that I should have done.
And Jeffrey, what page are we looking at the moment?
So this is page.php.
Page, okay.
Which in your theme is the default for anytime you're showing a page. Not a post, not a single, not an author page, but a page. Not a specific page either, but your default page. So the idea is, I want to get real close to it. Oh, is the camera on right now?
Yeah.
Let me get,
Oh, it's right here.
Is it here?
Yeah.
Okay, do some kung fu and double bear claw. That's right. So the idea would be
convention for this yet, but it's starting to emerge that there's loops are, again, the things that you run through a bunch of times with like your posts and your posts and your pages and stuff like that. Content is for things that happen once. In this case, I did it's a contact form and their address and phone number, stuff like that. Just kind of one-off things. But again, this part's still the same on that page, so why repeat that? So again, what kind and then what one specifically. And the reason you do it, you can do it with just one, but the reason you can do it with the two, and again, I didn't do this correctly, is if it doesn't find a loop-services page, it'll default back to a loop.php page, so, which I don't have. It's just the general loop page. So much like in the template hierarchy of the themes, you know, it says, do you have a page file? Do you have a page default template? You know, it goes all the way down until it says, okay, you have nothing else. I'm using the index page. Same kind of thing. Do you have the services loop page? No. Okay, I'm going to use this regular loop page. Do you have that? No. Okay, I'm going to go to the index page kind of a thing. So it's a kind of a default redundancy. Oh, man. This was not easy.
Down on the bottom.
Put the plug in. It's on the floor.
This is the old plug. I don't know if it'll work.
It works.
It works.
Yay.
Okay.
It's gonna blow.
You never know, dude. You're asking a lot of the little 13-inch there. But it really is simple. So let me show you one of the loop pages, which is not going to surprise you the way it looks. So with services, it's a tittering going on in there. Yeah, so it's not surprising the way this page looks. Again, it looks like what you would have put in where I had the... Yeah, this is too small now. What's the backwards on this one? So, again, had I built a bunch of template pages, in here would be, you know, what to do with each of the posts in their loop, which is essentially what... These things. So again, as far as the convention goes, also I don't know yet if people are putting these in their own directories yet, if they're leaving them in with the theme file. So far I've been leaving them out, but I'm considering putting them in their own folders, like making like a loops folder and dropping all the loops in there. Seems like it might clean it up a little bit. I don't know.
The other way I've seen it in 2011 is that they actually have the loop.php that has all those inside. And it's working kind of the same way.
Yeah, but I like to have them separate. And again, this is just and that's totally a valid way to go. I prefer my pages not to be, 1,000 lines long. I like little chunks to work with, because I have my little monitor. Scrolling at the 2 fingers. Just not going to happen. So much work. I know. Is everyone going to go home and use this now when they build their themes?
Yeah.
All right. Are there any other questions? Not that there were questions to begin with. Are there any initial questions at the end? To close. Okay. So that's...
So you're in love with Coda. I've been hearing about Coda all week.
I'm not in love with it. It's just what I use.
We're over and over again this weekend, and some people really love it.
Okay.
Yeah, remember way back in the 90s when we used to do HTML, we didn't have CSS yet, and we edited and BB'd it?
That's a good one.